It's a kid who rarely lifts a finger, who doesn't take personal responsibility, tends to blame others for their mistakes that happen, who expects to be rescued. It's not just about kids who want more. It's kids who expect that they will be served and the world revolves around them.
Welcome to The Lisa Show, where we take a good look at life. Hey, it's Lisa. Okay, so I had a friend share this story with me at lunch today. And let me just set the scene for you, because this conversation represents a lot of conversations that I've had with friends recently. Okay, imagine you're having a family vacation planned with your young adult children. This has taken months to plan because, getting older kids' schedules to work out is nothing short of a miracle. But it's finally happening, and you can't wait. But then one of your young adult sons says, I can't bear to come on the trip without my girlfriend. So even though this isn't what you planned, you want your son to be happy, you're flexible, so you just smile and say, well, of course the girlfriend can come along. But now it's 4 days into that family vacation, and neither your son or adult girlfriend has paid for a single one of the meals at the expensive restaurants that you've gone to in order to accommodate the girlfriend's dietary preferences. Nor has she or your son ever said thank you for any of those meals. Nope, not once. They just kind of go along. And then your son takes you aside to let you know that you really should be more supportive of him and his needs. It was at this point in the story when my mouth fell open and I narrowed my eyes while saying, oh, no. No, they didn't. But they did. And these aren't bad kids. In fact, they're really nice, good kids. But it's hard to look past their entitled behavior. I wish I could say I haven't noticed this in my own family or other families, but I have. Is it just me, or does entitlement seem to be rearing its ugly head more and more often and at every age? That's why I brought on my new friend, Amy McCready, onto the show today. Amy is an author and parenting expert and is a regular guest and contributor on the Today Show and CBS This Morning. She's here to tell us more about the entitlement epidemic and what it looks like, how we may be unintentionally contributing to it, how we can right the ship, and why it's never too late, even for parents of adult kids like myself, to foster more gratitude and appreciation in our children. Here's Amy.
I'm Amy McCready. I'm the founder of Positive Parenting Solutions. And for more than 25 years, I've been teaching and coaching parents how to raise respectful, responsible, resilient kids. And it is just the greatest job in the world. And I came to it out of desperation. When I was raising my kids, there was not a lot of parenting education out there, quite honestly. And so I had great kids, but I had all the power struggles. And so I started taking parenting classes at a local Montessori school. And I was like, this is my passion. And I've been studying and researching and teaching for the past 25 years.
So I want to really focus it to this idea of entitlement and when it became an important topic to you and why.
Yeah, it was so funny. I had written my first book, if I have to tell you one more time, and was working with my publisher, Penguin Random House, on my second book, which was going to be about teens and tweens. And as I started writing it, everything ended up being about entitlement. And I went to my publisher and I said, I know a book about tweens and teens is important, but let me tell you what every parent that I work with is concerned about. And that's kind of how it happened. It seemed like every conversation I was having in my coaching calls and in public speaking events, everybody was talking about entitlement. They might not have been labeling it as entitlement, but it was those types of behaviors. And I said, that's what I need to write this book about, which was the me epidemic. And that's how I sort of dove into this whole topic. And I think it affects all parents. It's not a socioeconomic issue necessarily.
Okay.
Yeah, in fact, a couple of years ago, I was doing some speaking engagements for one of the poorest counties in the country in rural West Virginia. And the teachers were complaining about how entitled the children were. And it has nothing to do with socioeconomics. It's just the attitudes and behaviors that happen with all families in all places.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so parents come to you, they're very worried. They're thinking, I think my kid is entitled. What are they typically seeing at home?
Yes. Well, let's start by saying that any kid can have a bad day. And even as adults, sometimes we act entitled. But if a family is experiencing entitlement on a regular basis, they're probably seeing things like a kid who can't handle disappointment. A no erupts into a full-on meltdown, or for an older kid, a no results in badgering and negotiating that's just relentless. It's a kid who rarely lifts a finger, who doesn't take personal responsibility, tends to blame others for their mistakes that happen, who expects to be rescued. It's not just about kids who want more. It's kids who expect that they will be served and the world revolves around them. Yeah, so let's just talk about some of those signs and symptoms for adult children who are entitled. It's the child that still expects to be pampered, right? Even though they're a grown adult out on their own. It's the child who views parental support and parental help as an expectation, as an obligation. Well, we're parents, of course we're going to do that, as opposed to the child who views that with such appreciation and gratitude.
Do you think that this generation is more entitled than in past generations, and why?
I think we can probably say, yes, they are, but it's not because kids these days are the worst or that parents aren't doing their job. There are significant societal changes that have happened over the past several generations that have gotten us to this point. And I often say entitled attitudes aren't really our kids' fault. But if you think about some of the changes over the past generations, the one that people really never talk about is we don't need for our kids to contribute. Think about generations ago. If you lived on a family farm, everybody contributes. Their contribution is required for the family's survival. Today, if we get our kids to help out, we're thrilled, but it's not required or necessary for the family's survival. We have technology today, which games and devices are just designed for constant reward and dopamine hits. There's social media that's giving people constant validation, but also constant comparison, and that creates so much anxiety and stress. We have the Netflix, Amazon effect, where everything is just immediate gratification. We don't have to wait for anything. And so it's no wonder that our kids kind of expect that that's the way it is. And then, of course, there is the parenting shift as well. I don't know about you, but when I grew up, my parents were loving, of course, but very hands-off. Where today, parents, we are very involved and invested in our kids' lives. We're invested in their success. We are kind of the co-pilots of their life. And a lot of that is so good, but a lot of it has created a situation where kids aren't developing the necessary skills for responsibility and resilience and all of those skills that they need for an unentitled lifestyle.
I'm just thinking of all these loving parents who are doing the best that they can, do not intend for this to happen. How do these loving parents accidentally create entitled kids?
Yeah. And I should have said this at the very beginning. All these things that I'm talking about, all these parenting mistakes, I've done every single one of them.
Oh, yeah. So same. For anyone listening, learn from us. No, I like that. I like that acknowledgement.
Yes, I never want to make it seem like, I've got all the answers because I made every mistake. And you're so right. It completely happens from a place of love. We tend to do what I call the overs. So it's like the over helping, right? Doing things for our kids that they're perfectly capable of doing for themselves, but we do it for them. It's overpraising, where, they're the best and the most awesome, and we just put them on a pedestal, and they expect others to put them on that pedestal as well. It's over-rescuing them. So stepping in to guard them from discomfort or consequences or feeling any unpleasant outcome, we step in and we rescue from that. So it's all of these behaviors that we do with the best of intentions. Again, a little bit of that is okay, but too much robs our kids of the opportunity to take responsibility for themselves and learn those skills to be the responsible, respectful, resilient person that they need to be as a young adult.
That's what we all want for our kids.
Yeah.
I'm curious as to what you think kids are entitled to and what they're not.
There's so many buckets for this answer, right?
Yes.
There's the physical things. They're, of course, entitled to a safe home and clothes on their back and those types of things. But I always say, too, they're entitled to, a pair of jeans, but they're not necessarily entitled to, insert X, the most popular brand of jeans, right? And I used to always laugh that the babysitters that would come to my house would have the nicest handbags and boots, and mine were from Target.
Right.
You know, just this expectation that that's what kids get. So obviously they are entitled to the basics in terms of all of that. They are entitled to physical safety and emotional safety and all of that. But the one thing that I always talk about with parents is they are entitled to us, our time and attention in an undivided way. And I think as our lives have become so much busier and our kids' lives have become so much busier, you know, we barely get a dinner together, and especially we barely get one-on-one time with our kids. And so one of the most important tools that we work with parents on is a concept that I've coined as mind, body, and soul time. Mind, body, and soul time is 10 or 15 minutes every single day with each kid just one-on-one. And so for little kids, that's just something we play or do together. But for that 10 or 15 minutes, they have you fully present in mind, body, and soul. They don't have to compete with their siblings for your attention. They don't have to compete with your partner, your phone, your to-do list. Like, they have you completely to themselves. And that, in my mind, is the first and most important antidote to the entitlement epidemic, right? Because when we're giving kids what they need at their core emotional level, I am telling you, within a couple of days of implementing mind, body, and soul time, the cooperation increases, they're more easygoing, they help out more, the badgering and complaining goes down, because we're eliminating all of that other noise, right? When we're meeting their core emotional needs of that one-on-one attention and connection with us, it changes everything. I'm not saying it's going to make everything perfect. It is the thing that they are entitled to, and it's the first step in unentitling your kids.
This is such great information. So when you discover, okay, we've created this together, I want to course correct, what's the first thing that you do?
So let me tell you the biggest mistake parents make in that, and then we'll talk about what we should do.
I love it.
Because this happens all the time. Once parents realize that, yes, maybe I've been over-pampering, I've been rescuing, I haven't had the appropriate expectations, they tend to overcorrect. So the pendulum swings in the completely other direction, and they come down hard, right? We're getting stricter, more rules, we're taking away privileges. And that always backfires, because kids have been used to dealing with us for years in a certain way. And so then when we completely change course and come down with, you know, this very strict punishment approach, they're going to dig in their heels and fight back even harder. And then parents get frustrated, and we're in that same pattern. So the most important thing is to just recognize, yes, I have been overhelping. I haven't been expecting as much as this child is capable of, and start in one area. So I always like to start with something that's, you know, just very concrete, like family contributions or technology, you know, whatever that is, and just start with one area, be very clear about what the expectation is going to be, how we're going to handle that moving forward, reveal any consequences if that might be appropriate, if the expectation isn't met, and then hold firm to that. Right? If we're going to have a rule, we have to hold firm to that. And then once kids start to see that, yes, they are serious about that, then there's not as much pushback, and then we can move on to the next thing. But it's better to build on a small success, and then we can grow from there.
I like that. It's building a foundation for it and changing the relationship, which is modeling good behavior as well. You talk a lot about this next point. And I have also found that this is a topic that a lot of parents know is important, but we're not sure why, and that's chores. Why do you think that it's so instrumental to children's development?
Lisa, I could talk to you about this topic for an entire hour. It is so important. And I'll just hit kind of the highlights. First, I would encourage our listeners and viewers to not call them chores.
Oh.
I like to call them family contributions. I've called them that for 25 years. My kids roll their eyes when I say it. But when you say out loud your family contributions, thank you for doing your family contributions, it sends the message that you matter, right? Like, what you do in our family makes a difference. And they have a completely different look on their sense of significance in the family. So that's the first thing, family contributions versus chores. The other piece, kind of related to that, is when our kids do contribute, let's please acknowledge that and let them know what a difference it makes. Like, I know emptying the dishwasher is no fun, but I just want you to know what a difference that makes in our family. Because the difference between a chore and a contribution is the difference that it makes to someone else. So let's be sure that we make that clear. The second piece is that it's skill development. You know, if we think about whatever age your kid is right now, so a listener with a 7-year-old, by the time that child graduates from high school, they should be proficient in basically every task involved in running a home. That's from doing your own laundry to cleaning the shower and toilets to changing air filters. Like, think of all the things that you do inside the home and outside the home to care for your property. Like, they need to be proficient in every one of those skills. And if we're not requiring kids to do those things, what a disservice to them.
Yeah.
I remember when my son went to college, he had an apartment with 4 roommates, and he was the only one that knew how to clean a bathroom, right? And so he was doing a little take time for training session with his roommates on cleaning bathrooms. So we take those things for granted, but if we don't teach those skills, our kids may be going to the next stage of their life not as prepared as they should be. But I will tell you that a lot of parents don't expect family contributions because their kids are in sports. Maybe they have, honors classes. They do have a lot of responsibilities on them. But I will say that's a mistake. And here's why. Because your kids will never be any less busy than they are now, right? As they get older, they're going to have a job and they're going to have kids. And we have to learn to manage our time. But with that said, you can have a certain expectation during the school year, but in the summer, you have a little bit more. You can have an expectation during the school week, but on the weekends, it's different. So for example, during the week, there should be things that they do every day, which are just normal expectations. Make your bed, clean your bathroom sink, like the basic things that take 5 minutes. And then maybe something like take out the trash or set the table. We're not talking about digging a ditch after school. We're talking about some task that just contributes to the family and makes the family's life operate more easily. So every day there is an expectation that there's something, even though they have school, because it's not taking a long time. And then on the weekends, I would encourage parents to have a bigger task. Maybe it's, mowing the lawn, folding laundry, whatever those things are. And we have a list that has jobs for kids by age if parents want to download that. But that can be helpful because sometimes you don't think like, I have a 6-year-old, what is reasonable for them to be doing? But the key is don't let how busy kids are or how much they fuss and complain about it affect the contributions that you're giving. Because very often we don't want to deal with the fussing and complaining, so we just stop asking. And that right there is the gateway to entitlement.
What is your policy on allowance or giving your kids money?
I am a firm believer in giving kids allowance because they need to learn how to spend money, save money, give money. So that is a really important part of their skill development. And as kids get older, they get more allowance. The reason for that, it's not because they turn 10, it's because now they're responsible for more of their expenditures.
Okay.
So think about things like if you have a middle schooler and perhaps you are paying for school lunch. Instead of you doing that, you give your child enough allowance so it also covers their school lunch. Then the child is responsible for budgeting that out. And you know what? He may decide, I'm going to pocket all that money and pack my lunch every day. How great would that be, right? So kids get an allowance, but the key thing is, and this may come as a shock to a lot of people, but it is not tied to family contributions.
Oh, interesting.
We are not paying kids to contribute because we are a family and everybody works together in the family for the family to function. The minute you start tying money to family contributions, I promise you, you are going to have a 10-year-old that you ask to take out the trash and he's going to say, well, how much am I getting for it? Right? It becomes a transaction as opposed to a contribution to the family. Now, the exception to that is what I call jobs for hire. Jobs for hire are outside of their normal family contributions. So it would be something like weeding the garden. If that's not part of their normal responsibility, it's something that you don't want to do, you'd be happy to pay your kid to do.
Yeah.
Great. That is a job for hire. So you're going to lay out the requirements of the job. If they do it to your satisfaction, they'll get paid. If not, they're not going to get paid. That is a way before a kid can go and work at Chick-fil-A or wherever, they can make money, in your house for things that are jobs for hire that you'd be willing to actually pay somebody else to do or that you don't want to do yourself. The kids that are scrappier, right, typically are the ones that they're paying for college themselves, right? They're paying for all of their going out with friends. And if they have access to a car, they're paying for gas and insurance and those types of things. That is what's going to create work ethic, right? Because they're going to have to learn how to do that.
I'd love to know your philosophy on age-appropriate consequences when that situation comes where they're like, not going to do it or don't care.
So we have to drill down, right, to what is the issue. So if it's technology and they're not respecting the technology limits and those types of things, then the kid loses their technology. The mistake that most parents make is they take away technology for every single thing.
Oh, okay.
And what happens is the kid gets to a point, he's like, whatever. And the parent has no leverage. So I don't like to go to consequences as the first line of action when there's a behavior issue, because there's almost always a more helpful, empowering, skill-building approach before you get to consequences.
And what are some examples of those? Like being late for curfew.
So first off, we need to be perfectly clear that we've set the expectation, and we have been firm on that. We set the expectation that if you are going to be late for any reason, this is what has to happen, right? You phone, because sometimes kids are late for good reason.
Sure.
But then you reveal the consequence in advance that, this is our family rule that you need to be home by 10:30. And if you are not home by 10:30, then you're going to lose the opportunity to go out with your friends for the next week.
Okay.
Right? That's a very connected consequence to that particular behavior. But the key thing with consequences, a couple of things, is first, we need to make sure that we reveal them in advance. So it's not you came home late, that's it, you're not going out next week. Like if we haven't revealed that in advance, that's not fair to the child, even though he knows he's supposed to be home. But we always reveal consequences in advance, and then we have the child repeat back. So Lisa, just so we're on the same page, can you repeat back to me what our rule is about curfew and what happens if you break curfew?
Yeah.
You repeat it back to me. Now I know we're on the same page. We have a verbal agreement. And so if I have to enforce the consequence, I'm not the bad guy. You made the choice.
Right.
Now you're still going to be mad at me, but that's okay. Like I can feel perfectly good about that as a parent because I revealed it in advance. The kid repeated back. We were all on the same page. It was a choice that they made as opposed to something that I did to them.
Yeah, they can be mad at the rule and it's not so personal. I mean, they'll still be mad at you, but yeah,
Exactly.
it's not the worst thing in the world. This is such great information. And from a parent's point of view who is on board and wants to start, how do they proceed?
Okay, so the tendency is to start on family contributions. We got to get that going. But I want to go one step backwards and start with mind, body, and soul time.
Okay.
Okay, let's start there. It is the most important thing that you can do for your relationship with the child, but for an easier family life for all the reasons I just mentioned, because they become more cooperative and easygoing and everything doesn't become a battle. Let's get that in place. Your listeners may not believe me, but I'm telling you, like once you try this, you
I
will
believe
see
you.
a shift in their attitudes and their level of cooperation. So that's the first and most important step. And then, of course, we build on that with some of the other expectations and things that we've talked about.
Yeah. What about parents of adult children who feel like, they're entitled and you don't have that daily one-on-one?
Let's try to recognize what are the areas in which we've probably been enabling this attitude of entitlement. Maybe we are helping too much. Maybe we're helping more financially than we should. And so again, let's just pick one area and have an honest conversation and say, we are here to support you and we will always be. And I've realized that by helping you in this way, I've actually not set you up for success. So let's talk about how we can proceed together in this area in the future. And they may not like it.
Right.
Especially if there's some entitlement baked in, they may be mad. But that's really the most loving thing that we can do, right? We're in this for the long haul, not for the immediate, whether the kid's going to be upset or not.
I would also think, too, you might have different parenting philosophies between two parents.
Yes.
Especially if kids are going back and forth into two households. That also might be a bit of a challenge.
That is an ongoing challenge. So again, I have this all the time where kids are going back between two households. At one household, they're allowed to do XYZ and no limits on technology time and all those things. And then the other parent feels like the bad guy trying to implement a sense of responsibility and expectations. That happens a lot. But even two parents within the same home, we see the same thing.
I'm sure.
Yeah. So that is a challenge. And so when that is the case, I always like for parents to kind of get together and say, okay, where can we agree as a baseline? My goal would be that the kids are cleaning the showers and they're, raking the yard and like all the things. But where can we agree as a baseline that we have consistent expectations on? If we could just do that, we'll make a lot of progress. And we can even do that if the parents are in different households.
Yeah. I find myself having a lot of conversations with parents who are thinking, I just wish that there were some more gratitude and appreciation. Is that something that you can really foster in your kids?
Thinking about gratitude, one of the overs that I didn't mention was overindulging, right? We give to our kids because we can. We give to kids because
we didn't
have things.
Yeah.
Exactly. So think about that. For the child who has everything and has really no wants or needs, they're probably not going to be as grateful for what they do have. So thinking about that, how much are we overindulging? I also love this idea of going without. So, thinking about things that we totally take for granted. I live in North Carolina. It is hot this time of year. I take air conditioning for granted, right?
Right.
But what if your family turned off the air conditioner for a week and experienced what it was like to not have air conditioning for a week? Would you appreciate it more? Probably. If you didn't go out to eat or do fast food or like any of the things that we take for granted and we say, okay, for the next month, we're not going to do that. So it's almost like having a fast in different areas of your life. But think about how that might shift your child's sense of gratitude. The other thing is so much of gratitude is caught, not taught. So it's our gratitude rituals at home, right? What are you doing as a family in terms of fostering gratitude and appreciation, whether it's around the meal table or your prayer life or whatever it is? The more that is part of your family norm, the better. When you model gratitude for your kids and they can hear you like out loud expressing gratitude for even like the littlest things, that sticks. Those are the things that are caught. Like I always say, we need to thank each other for the little things. Like every morning, my husband fills up my iced tea glass. Every morning I thank him because I appreciate that so much. It's like the littlest thing. So again, if we can just make that an expectation, because if they're showing appreciation for other members of the family, hopefully they're showing appreciation for the checkout person at the grocery store and all the other people who come into their world. And then obviously serving others, and not just a Saturday at a food bank, and that's important too, but ongoing service, whether it's in your place of worship or with your neighbors or whatever. Is like the more of that we do that is outside of ourselves, it helps to foster appreciation and empathy and gratitude for the lives that we have.
That's so great. You've said this before, that it's never too late to turn around. Do you really believe that?
I really do.
Really?
I do. It's never too late, but the sooner that we get on this, the better. This is just an opportunity to say, okay, yes, that is something I'm recognizing. It's a growth opportunity for all of us. And so let's not beat ourselves up. Let's just take the one next step.
We've all made mistakes when it comes to entitling our kids. Do I keep my pantry and fridge stocked with crunchy snacks and carbonated beverages for my kids just because I didn't have those growing up? Yes. And do my kids take that for granted? Yes. Again, none of us are going to navigate entitlement perfectly, but there are some things we can do to make sure entitlement doesn't get out of hand. The first and most important move, and this surprised me, is to make sure we're giving our kids mind, body, and soul time. Our kids are not entitled to name brand clothes or nice cars or expensive trips, but they are entitled to us. If we want to curb entitlement in our kids, it starts with giving them what they actually do deserve, which is an invested parent. Devoting just a few uninterrupted, intentional minutes a day to our kids is the best way to combat entitlement. Once our kids' emotional buckets are a little fuller, it's a lot easier to get them on board with other entitlement curbing practices like household contributions, privilege fasts, service to others, and gratitude practices. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Parenting isn't an exact science. Some things will work, some things won't. But it's worth making the effort to dial down the entitlement in our kids, especially since those efforts may result in some well-adjusted, independent adults and an occasional thank you for all we do. We can only hope.
The Lisa Show is a production of BYU Radio, hosted by Lisa Valentine Clark. This episode was produced by Erica Price, with help from Becca Hurley-Lung and Blake Morse, with post-production by Gracie Davis. A special thanks to today's guest, Amy McCready, parenting expert and author. Links to her books, as well as her website, will be in the show notes. We'll also include a link to her list of age-appropriate family contributions in the show notes. Don't miss out on 2 other amazing podcasts from the Lisa Show family, The Council of Moms and Proofread, a new book review podcast to help you read more of what you love. You can find The Council of Moms and Proofread on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for your messages. We read them all. Thanks for listening.
I'm Lisa from The Lisa Show, and I've got something unexpected for your ears. A BYU Radio original audio adventure series called Olympus Dale, The Ghost of Valkyrie, a story where one town vanishes and long-buried truths are revealed. Whether you're into sci-fi or just love a mystery, this drama has got you covered. And as much as I would love to tell you more about it, I think it's better if you listen for yourself.
Olympus Dale, the town my dad founded, is an all-American boar fest. Or so I thought.
We've been attempting to solve the mystery.
It's tippity top secret, nuclear code secret.
People are disappearing. We're running out of time.
What are you kids doing out here?
My name is Valkyrie Smith. I'm 16 years old, and I am dead.
Olympus Dale, The Ghost of Valkyrie, is now streaming on the Kaboom podcast feed, wherever you get your podcasts.